Hello, beautiful people. My name is Eunice. You're welcome to another interesting video. In this video, I'm going to be teaching us how to make this beautiful Igbo blouse, also known as Madame Blouse. This blouse has a Queen Anne's yoke, a scalloped Queen Anne's yoke. This is what I'm talking about at the neckline. Can you see how we have the lace edges at the tip of the yoke? And I also have a sweetheart yoke overlaying on top of the Queen Anne's yoke. And this is what the back view looks like. Can you see? This blouse is really beautiful and very simple to make. So without wasting much of your time, let's get right into the video. And please, before we get started, make sure to click on the subscribe button to subscribe and also put on your notification bell so you get notified every time I upload a new video. Thank you. I'll be drafting on this pattern paper. The first thing I'm going to do now is to draw the shoulder line. So from the shoulder line, I'm going to measure shoulder to bust point. That's to the nipple point, which is 11 inches. Then same from the shoulder line, I'll mark the underbust point. From shoulder to underbust is 14 inches. I'll mark on both sides so that I can have a straight line. Then next I'm going to mark from shoulder to waistline, which is 17 inches. Then next I'm going to mark the full length of the blouse, and the full length of this blouse is 24 inches, and that's the length of my paper. So right now I'm going to straighten out the lines. This is the bust line, the underbust line next, then the waistline, and then the full length of the blouse. So I'll come to the shoulder line, placing my tape from the center front. I'm going to mark 3 inches on the shoulder line. Still on the shoulder line, I'm going to mark half of the shoulder measurement plus half inch for joining the sleeve. And that gave me 8 inches. So I'm marking on 8 inches. Then from this 8 inches mark, I'll come down by 1.5 inches to create the shoulder slant. I didn't come down by 1 inch, which we regularly do. I came down by 1.5 inches. I want this blouse to have that perfect fit so the back shoulder will lay over in front and give that nice fit. So now to enter the armhole measurement, the actual armhole is 7.5, but you can see that in front I marked 7 inches because I've already taken half inch from the shoulder. So right now I marked 7 inches instead of 7.5. We'll understand that this is to achieve a very perfect fit. So the armhole I used here in front is 7 inches instead of 7.5 because I've taken a shoulder slant of 1.5 already. Okay, so now to create the armhole curve, I'm going to come up from the chest line by 3 inches to create the armhole curve. So from the chest line, I'll go up by 3 inches. And then at this 3 inches mark, I'll mark 3/4 of an inch inwards. This is to achieve that nice armhole curve so that you don't have any gathering at the armhole area. So and I've gone ahead to connect it to the shoulder tip. And then on the chest line, I'm going to enter quarter of the bust measurement. That's bust divided by 4, which is 9 inches. I marked it on the chest line. Then I'll curve the armhole to meet that 9 inches mark I have on the chest line there. Can you see? So this is what our front armhole looks like. So I already made it clear that the front armhole is going to be smaller than the back. So this will remove any excess. It will give you that very nice and perfect fit. This works perfectly. And remember, I'm making a Queen Anne's yoke. So this will actually help our Queen Anne's yoke to sit really, really beautiful. So now the next thing I'm going to do from the center front, I'm going to mark half of the nipple to nipple measurement. The nipple to nipple I'm working with is 7 inches. Half of it is 3.5. I'll add half inch to that measurement. That's for joining the center and the side. So that's going to give me 4 inches. So I'm marking 4 inches all through on the bust line, on the under bust line, the waistline, all the way down to the full length of the blouse. So I'm going to connect these points with a straight line like this. Now the next thing to do is to tighten the underbust and the waistline. So to tighten the underbust and the waistline, I'm going to mark 1 inch on both sides of this nipple to nipple line I have here. So I'm going to mark 1 inch on the waistline. I'll also mark 1 inch on the underbust line. I'll repeat the same thing on the side front. I'll mark 1 inch also on this side and repeat the same thing on the waistline. And then I'm going to use a straight ruler to connect the points. So this dart intake of 1 inch on both sides is optional. This depends on the size you're working with. If you are making this for a plus size, let's say the nipple to nipple of the person you're making this for is 8 inches. Half of it is 4. So plus half inch, that's 4.5. You can take away 1.5 on both sides. So the more tightened the underbust is, the more lift you have on the bust. But please work with the size. Now this is bust 36. This person is on the small side. So 1 inch is just fine. It's going to give a perfect lift. So I'm going to connect it to the full length of the blouse, and I'll also connect down to the full length of the blouse. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to connect to the bust point. So to connect to the bust point, I'll place my armhole like this, touching the under bust line and as well as the bust point at the same time. And then I'll connect it this way. Can you see? I'll repeat the same thing on this side, making sure that the curve is touching the bust point and touching the under bust point also. So having done that, I'll need to tighten the overbust. So to tighten the overbust, I'm going to measure the distance I have from the bust point to the underbust point. That will also give me the distance to the overbust. And I'll add half inch to that measurement just to have it a little bit more covered. So I'm marking 3.5 at this point because the distance from the bust point to the underbust is 3 inches. So here to the overbust, I mark 3.5. Okay, so now this is it. So the next thing now I'm going to do is to mark the same nipple to nipple measurement, half of the nipple to nipple measurement plus half inch on this overbust line. So placing my tape from the center front, I'm going to mark the same 4 inches I marked on the bust line. So I'll mark 4 inches and then I'll use my straight ruler to connect it to this point. Next, I'll mark half inch on both sides of this line, half inch on the center front and half inch on the side front. Then I'll use my pattern marker using this part that is slightly curved and connect it to this point like this. I'll repeat the same thing on this side. So we have successfully tightened the overbust. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to enter all my measurements before we come back to the yoke. Okay, so at the bust point line, I'm going to enter quarter of the bust measurement, the bust divided by 4, which is 9 inches. I'll add my 2 inches for sewing allowance, and then I'm going to add 1 inch I'll be using to join the center and the side. I'll be using half inch to join it, so that will be 1 inch. So basically I added 3 inches to this bust line because I need half inch to join the center front and the side front together. Okay, so now on the underbust, I'm going to enter quarter of the underbust measurement, which is 7 1/4. Having marked 7 1/4, I'm going to measure what I have at the dart intake, which is 2 inches. I'll replace it back and then I'll go ahead and mark 2 inches also for my sewing allowance. After adding 2 inches for my sewing allowance, I'll still add 1 inch I'll be using to join the center and the side, so which is going to be 3 inches. So if you're okay with just having 1 inch as your sewing allowance, you can just go ahead and add 2 inches and all, but I want to have 2 inches when I am done. On the waistline, I repeated the same thing. Now on the hip line, I'm going to enter quarter of the hip measurement plus 2 inches for my side sewing allowance and then 1 inch for joining the center and the side front. So I'm going to connect my points like this. I'll connect to the bust line. And then here on the armhole line, I'm just going to open up my ruler by 1/2 inch this way. Because at the armhole area, we have this flesh under our armpit area that just opens up a little. So in total, you can see that that's that 3 inches that I actually added to the bust or to all the measurements. Okay, so now the next thing we're going to do now is to mark the neck width. I'm going to be using a neck width of 2.5 inches. Remember, we're making a queen ant neck, so I need the neckline to really be close. So I'll mark 2.5 inches here. And then at this side front, just watch carefully what I'm doing. I want the yoke to end at the side front. That's at the second dart leg. And you see? So I'm going to connect from this point to the shoulder line. That's to the shoulder tip. So what I'm doing is just to confirm what I have there. I have 3 inches there, and that's fine. So I'm going to use my straight ruler to connect it to that 2.5 I have here. So I'm connecting it to the second dart leg, which is the side piece there. Okay, so now this is what my queen ant yoke looks like. You see that? So now the next thing I'm going to do, I want to create the sweetheart shape that I'll also have overlaying on top of the queen ant yoke. So I'm just going to place my armhole cuff like this. So I'm placing it at the point where I have my 3 inches. That's where I curved the armhole inwards. That's at that 3 inches point I marked initially. You see? So I'm curving it now to the center front. So you can see we have the sweetheart at the down part and we have the queen ant yoke. So I'm just going ahead to label it yoke, and I'm doing the same thing on this side. The next thing I'll be doing is to mark the bust dart. The bust dart is the difference between the front and back length, and in this case it is 1 inch. So I'm going to mark 1 inch from the bust point line. I'll come down by 1 inch, and then I'll use my straight ruler to connect it to the nipple to nipple point, just like this. Can you see that? So we already know that our front length and back length are not the same. This is because we have our bust in front. And in this case, for my client, the difference is just 1 inch. So know your difference and work with it. It is not always 1 inch. It can be more than that. So at this point, I want to start drafting the back pattern. We'll come back to the front and cut out our pattern later when we are done with the back and do the necessary alterations we need to do. So to draft the back pattern, first I've marked the shoulder line. I've drawn the shoulder line, and then I'm going ahead to mark 1 inch for the zip allowance. I'm going to use my straight ruler to connect the points. So this zip allowance line now is now the center front. This line I'm marking is now the center back. Please, I beg your pardon, is now the center back. And you see, so from the center back line, I'm going to mark half of the shoulder measurement plus ½ inch for joining the sleeve. So which is 8 inches. So I'll come down by 1 inch. For the back, I'm coming down by 1 inch. Remember that for the front, I came down by 1.5. And then I mark 3 inches on the shoulder line. And then I'll connect it like this. Can you see? So now we have our back shoulder slant, and it is 1 inch. So I'll come down by the armhole measurement, which is 7.5 inches. Remember that the front I use 7 inches. For the back, I'm using 7.5 inches. So placing my tape from the shoulder slant, I'll come down by 7.5 inches. Then I'm going to connect it with a straight line. So to do that, I'll reconfirm the shoulder measurement plus ½ inch here, half of the shoulder measurement plus ½ inch, so that I can have a straight line. So this always helps you to achieve a straight line. So I'll square out this line this way. So now this is the chest line, and which is also called the armhole line. So having done that, the next thing I'm going to do now is to mark the waistline. So the waistline at the back is 16 inches. Remember, the front was 17, the waistline at the back is 16 inches. So that's the difference between the front and back, which is that 1 inch. And then the full length at the back is 23 inches. The front is 24 inches. So just pay attention. That's the difference between the front and back, which is 1 inch. So you can see I'm going ahead to straighten my line like this. And then also, so this is the waistline, and then the last one is the full length line, which is also the upper hip line. Okay, on the chest line, I'm going to mark quarter of the bust measurement on this chest line, which is 9 inches. And then I'll get the midpoint of the armhole by folding my tape into two like this. At this midpoint, I'll go in by half of an inch and then connect it to the shoulder tip. And then I'll curve it to meet the 9 inches I marked there. That's which is the quarter of the bust measurement. So right now we have the back armhole. So this chest line, I'm just going to extend the line to meet the center back here because I'll be working with this line. So now we have our back chest line. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to enter a quarter of the bust measurement, which I've already done. And then I'll go ahead and add my 2 inches for sewing allowance. And then I'll also add 1 inch. I need half inch to join the center back and the side back. I'll have two pieces on each side. So I need half inch to join them together. So half inch on both sides, that's 1 inch. So that's it. So here on the waistline, I'm also going to enter quarter of the waist measurement plus the same 3 inches that I entered on the chest line. Very simple. And then here on the hip line, I'm going to repeat the same thing. Quarter of the hip measurement plus 3 inches. Remember I said that this 2 inches is what I want to have when I'm done sewing. So if you're okay with having 1 inch, that's fine. So now on the waistline, I'm going to mark half of the nipple to nipple measurement plus half inch. So I'm marking on the same 4 inches. 4 inches. Half of the nipple to nipple is 3.5 plus half inch, that's 4 inches. So I'm connecting it with a straight line like this. So all the way from the chest line down to the full length of the blouse. So here on the waistline, I'm going to mark half inch on both sides. Half inch on both sides of the waistline. And then I'm going to connect my dart. So this point at the hip line, I'll go up by, that's at the full length, I'll go up by 1 inch because this length is 23 inches and our dart stops at 22 inches. So that's why I just went up by 1 inch. Your basic dart always stops at 22 inches. So from the chest line also, I'll come down by 1 inch and then I'll connect the darts like this. So very simple. So you can see we now have our back dart. So that's it. So this 1 inch, this dart line, I'm going to be cutting it open, okay, because I'll stitch them together. So this dart I have here, I'm just going to replace it on the waistline because when we cut it out, I'm going to lose that 1 inch. So I replaced it back on the waistline only. Okay, so you can see I've connected my points like this, and that's that for the back. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to draw the back neckline. I'm going to be using a neck depth of 1 inch at the back and then a neck width of same 2.5 inches like I used for the front. So I'm just going to mark my 2.5 inches like this, and then I will curve it out. So that's that for the back neckline. So this upper part from the chest line to the shoulder line is going to be the back yoke. I'm not going to have the zip allowance extending into the yoke. So I'm just going to label this part yoke. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to eliminate zipper bulge. That's to remove the zipper bulge. So from the waistline at the zip allowance area, I'm going to come in by half of an inch and then I'll slant it to the neckline and then also do the same thing at the down part. After doing that, so I'll go ahead and cut out the zipper bulge. We'll cut it out and throw it away. This is to actually help our zip sit very well at the back. So you don't want your zipper to bulge at the back. So right now our back pattern is ready. On this pattern, I didn't add hemming allowance because I don't need hemming allowance. I use the actual length of the blouse on this pattern. This is because I'm working with a lace fabric. The lace, I'm going to have the scallop part of the lace at the down part of this blouse. So there's no need adding hemming allowance since I won't be folding it. So what I have here is just the actual length, and that's how I'm going to cut it on my satin. So by the time we now fold the hem of the lace, I'm going to now, that's the hem of the satin rather. By the time I fold the hem of the satin, I will now have my scallop part of the lace finishing up the blouse, ending the blouse. I hope we understand. So right now I'm going ahead to cut out the back pattern, starting from the side. And then here you can see I'm cutting on the chest line. So I'm separating the yoke from the down part of the blouse. And see, I'm cutting out the hem. That's the excess that is not part of my measurement. And then I'm going to cut on this dart line. So take note of the way I'm cutting it. You can see I'm cutting out the dart completely, and then I'm cutting it out like this. So that's the essence of that 1 inch I added at the side, so that by the time I join the center and the back together with half of an inch, that 1 inch will be gone. Can you see? I'm going to join it so that 1 inch will be taken care of, or will take care of this. Okay, so now I'll go ahead and cut out the back yoke. So first is to label it center back. This one is center back and this is side back, so that you don't interchange them. And then I'll go ahead and cut out the back yoke, cutting the armhole first and then the shoulder line. And like I said, that I don't need zip allowance on this back yoke, so I'm going to cut out the zip allowance because I'm going to just have a button loop at the back area. So meaning that the zip allowance will stop at the down part of the back, at that of the other two pieces. It will not get to the yoke at the back, so I'll have to cut out this part. So this is what the back is going to look like. So can you see the zip allowance extending forward at that point and the yoke is inwards? So that's that for the back. So right now we'll go ahead and cut out the front. So to cut the front, I'm going to start with cutting the dart legs. So just watch carefully what I'm doing. I'm going to follow all the dart legs and cut them out, and then I'll explain how we're going to get the yoke. Next, I'll close the bust dart. So can you see the way I'm folding the dart over to meet the bust point? And you can see now that as I have closed the bust dart, the point has shifted. So you want to make sure that you blend in that part. You can see that I still have excess paper around there, so I can now blend it up well. So blend it up. That's it. So you just want to make sure that you always blend this up, because by the time you close your bust dart, it always has a way of creating one shortage. So just blend up the line and then cut it out like this. Okay, so we now have our two front pieces. So this is the center front, CF, and this is the side front, SF. So now it's time for us to treat the yoke. As you can see, the front yokes are intersecting. So we'll need to separate the two of them from each other because we're going to have these two yokes. To do that, I'm going to first cut the armhole, the front armhole, and also cut out the front neckline. And then I'll transfer to a fresh pattern paper using my tracing wheel to transfer one of the yokes. You can either transfer the Queen Anne's yoke to the fresh pattern paper, or you transfer the Sweetheart yoke to a fresh pattern paper. So right now I've placed the yoke on a fresh pattern paper. So using my tracing wheel, I'm transferring the Sweetheart yoke to this pattern paper. It's really simple. All you need to do is just trace out the shape you have here. And then I'll also trace out the part of the armhole here to stop at the Sweetheart yoke, so you can see what it looks like. So I'll go ahead and cut out this pattern now. So we now have our sweetheart yoke. So I can now cut out the queen ant's yoke. Can you see? So this is what it will look like. So the sweetheart yoke can either be under or on top of the queen ant's yoke. So this just depends on your preference. I've not decided whether I want it to be up or down, but I think I prefer it being up so that you can see the scalloped shape that will be cutting from the lace. So our patterns are ready. This is what our front pattern looks like. Can you see how I'm placing them? And then this is what the center front looks like. So this is what we're going to have, and we also have our back pieces. So I'll place this on my fabric and cut the lace, cut the lining, that's the satin, and also cut the second lining because I'm going to be using a lace fabric. And then I'll show us how to cut this yoke, that's the front yokes, because we're going to have a scallop shape in front. So basically I've added all the necessary allowances on my pattern. The only place I'll be adding allowance now is at the upper part, or upper parts only of the patterns. That's the center front, the side front, the back, and all that. The upper parts I'll be using to join them with the yoke. All the allowances have been added. So I've gone ahead to cut the fabric and the lining as well. So I'm going to set this aside and show us how to cut the scallop yoke. So I'll bring in my lace fabric, and here this side you can see is the scallop part of the lace. So I'm going to place the queen ant yoke like this, making sure that the neckline of the yoke is aligning with the scallop part of the lace. Can you see? This is the side I'm talking about. So you want to make sure that it aligns with it. So I'm going to, can see now that it's not straight. So I'm going to add half inch at the base, that's at the down part of the yoke, and I'll also add half inch at the shoulder area. So that's why I'm leaving this space of that. I'm placing a half inch above the end of the fabric, and then I'll cut at this point. So I have half inch I'll be using to join it to the bustier, and then at the shoulder area also I'll add half inch I'll be using to join the front and back shoulders together. So, and then I'm not adding anything to the armhole because I already added my sewing allowance to the pattern. So this is it. Okay, so right now I have the queen ant yoke. So I'm going to also place it on the lace fabric and cut out exactly the same thing for the other side. So can you see what it looks like? So I'll repeat the same thing and cut out the other side, just exactly what I've done, and then I'll show us how to cut the sweetheart yoke. So to cut the sweetheart yoke, I'm also going to place my pattern like this, making sure that the neckline also aligns with the scallop part of the lace. Can you see what I'm doing? So I'm making sure that it aligns with the scallop part of the lace. So, and then I'm going to add half inch to the base, that's to the down part here. I'll be using to join it to the bustier as well. And then I'm going to bring in my scissors and cut out this shape. As you can see, we now have our sweetheart yoke. So to get the other side, I'm going to place it right side facing the right side of the lace so we can cut the opposite direction. That's to get the other side. So I'll repeat the same thing, and then we'll go ahead and cut the back yoke as well. To cut the back yoke, I've placed my fabric on fold. I'm going to press it down so that it's relaxed. I'm cutting two pieces. We'll need two sides of the back. And then I'm going to cut this yoke out. I'll leave half inch at the center back because I'll be using it to turn the lining of the yoke. The lining of this yoke is going to be a white net also, so that it looks like a skin tone. So I'm going to cut at the down part here, leaving half inch for joining it to the back pieces, that's the down back pieces. And then I also have half inch at the center back that I'll be using to turn the yoke. Can you see my half inch here? And then I'm going to trace out the armhole, the exact armhole. There's no need adding any half inch there, I've added it already. And then on the shoulder line, I'll also add half inch for joining the back and front shoulder. So I'll go up by half inch there for joining the shoulder, and then I cut out the neckline, And that's that for the yoke. Of course, I'll slit it open because it's the center back, so it's going to be separated. So, and then I'll go ahead and cut the lining, which is the net I said I'll be using as the lining. So that's it for the back yoke. So now it's time for us to stitch our pieces together. Okay. So here is our back piece. I've stitched the center back to the side piece and I repeated the same thing here. And you can see I've sewn my zipper. I stitched the zipper to the main fabric. Can you see? To the main fabric, and then I use the lining to turn it. So you can see that, can you see that the zipper is completely, that's the cloth of the zipper, or the outer part of the zipper. You can see it's inside, that is in between the lining and the fabric. Then I've gone ahead to also sew my yoke. First, I turned the neckline of the yoke and I turned this side also. I repeated the same thing here. I turned the neckline. I gave it a nice press and then stitched it in between the lining and the main fabric. So you can see, and I left the armhole open here. I repeated the same thing on this side. So you can see that it's easy to turn it out from here. And you see, I turned it out from this side. So that's that for the back. Our back is ready. So this is the front piece. I've joined the bustier and I've also padded it. As you can see, I pressed my seam lines open, and this is what it looks like on the right side. Can you see? So you can see the underbust. Can you see how the underbust is sitting? So this is what I have here. You can see everything came out really beautiful. Okay, so I also stitched my linings together. And see, this how I'm going to place the lining on top of it. So but before we do that, I'll bring in the yoke I'll be sewing to the neckline. So this is how our yoke is going to be. Let me place this here first. So this is how our yoke is going to be. This yoke is for this side, that's the Queen Anne's yoke, and this is for this side. And then I have this that will overlap on top of it like this, and then also overlap on top of it like this. So for this yoke now, I can go ahead and stitch them together like this. I'll stitch it together because it's from coming from the armhole. This is part of the armhole here. So I'll stitch it like this and stitch like this. I repeat the same thing here, stitch like this and stitch like, then I'll show us how to sew it to the neck, that's to the bustier. Let me do that and come back. So I'm done stitching the yoke together. This is what I have like this. You can see they'll meet each other and then we'll have this. So I'll bring in the blouse. So from this side here, remember that this is part of the armhole and this is obviously part of the armhole. So I added 2 inches for my sewing allowance. So from this side here, I'm going to mark 2 inches. So I can just use my scissors and notch that 2 inches. And then from this side also, I'm going to notch 2 inches as well. You see? So and then I'm going to place the yoke. So now this one that is for this side, I'm going to flip it right side facing right side like this. Place it from here. So you can see where I'm placing it from the armhole here. Can you see the 2 inches? This remaining part is the sewing allowance. So I'm going to pin it this. Okay. So this is what I have here. You see? So for this side also, so from the 2 inches I notched here, which is the seam allowance, I'll place it this way like this. Neckline looks like, you see. So I'm going to take this to my sewing machine and sew on half inch, and then I'll come back and show us what it looks like before we place the lining. After sewing the yoke to the bustier, this is what we have. So you can see it's coming out really beautiful. I'm going to flip the yoke backwards now and place the lining right side of the lining facing right side of the fabric, and then I'll sew the neckline here. After doing that, I'm going to join the shoulders of the front and back together and fix the sleeve and show us the final outcome of this blouse. Yes, this is the final outcome of our Igbo blouse, and it came out really beautiful. Can you see how the scallop neckline is sitting so pretty? Our yoke, the Queen Anne's yoke, the sweetheart yoke, everything is giving what it should give. And this is the back view. Can see I made a cover button for the back, and you can see how beautiful the back is sitting. The back is beautiful, the front is beautiful. Everything came out so beautiful. And I made this beautiful structured sleeve for this blouse. If you would like to see a video on how to make this structured sleeve, I'm going to drop the link in the description box because it's already up on my channel. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and you learned something. If you did, please make sure to like this video, share this video, and do not forget to subscribe to my channel. Subscription is free. Please support my channel by subscribing and make sure to put on your notification bell so you get notified every time I upload a new video. Thank you for watching. See you in my next video. Bye.